Did you know that in 2024, early stage investments dropped by 17%, but round sizes actually increased for the winners? So, what does that mean for you fundraising in 2025? Well, I've helped hundreds of founders raise $250 million. And in the last 5, 6 months, I've helped raise over $30 million alone. And I'm seeing a big key difference in what successful funding rounds look like in 2025 and the end of 2024 and how that will look forward into the future. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 main changes that have happened in fundraising in 2025 and how they should change the mindset you have on fundraising going forward. Because this is your opportunity to stand out. And if you become prepared and meet these higher expectations, you'll rise above the noise. Now, most founders won't be ready. It might feel weird, but those who embrace this new mindset are the ones securing term sheets. I'm seeing it, even in this tough market. So, what are these major changes? Point 1. In 2025, traction is king. Gone are the days where you could raise on a few slides and an idea. And that's okay. Why? Because there are so many tools now to get transaction before you raise. When I started my first business, failed my first 2 fundraisers, I didn't have tools like Cursor or Replit or Lovable. I couldn't build an MVP over a weekend for $20 and test it with users. But here's the thing, you can and you should. Due diligence and research and understanding if they want to invest into you in 2025 is far more thorough than it was in 2021. Investors are digging into your market, your product, and finances before they write a check. And even at pre-seed, they expect some proof of concept and real validation, which you can do. You can build an MVP and you can understand your users at the earliest possible. Now, this is where I see a lot of founders go wrong. You hear traction and think that you need $1 million or $10 million ARR and revenue, and that investors only invest in revenue. And they give up when they get rejected and for not having enough. And it's purely because you don't have enough. And that's the reason why. But here's the thing, traction isn't just revenue. I work with founders all the time, and multiple founders that have 0 revenue that have raised millions of dollars. And there are a lot of ways to show that you have traction that isn't just revenue that investors are still looking for. Now, if you want to help building that in under 90 days, check out the link below. But right now, examples of things that you should be looking at in terms of how you can actually build that is things such as early user growth, a few pilots, a wait list, sure, some type of revenue. What matters is not just that you're showing traction and revenue, but showing what it unlocks. Because vision still matters, of course, especially to attract top tier investors. But vision without proof that you are actually going to be able to complete that vision, it just won't close around in 2025, not anymore. So if you're pre-revenue, you need to lean on engagement metrics, pilot success, actual conversations you've had with customers. Even I just helped a founder raise, and the biggest thing they talked about is how they had this massive wait list and the hundreds of people that they spoke to and the key things that they got from it. If you're deep tech or biotech, show technical milestones you hit. The point is, you need to build a data-driven case for your potential, and it can't just be, I have this idea. And that brings us on to point 2. You need to show that you can reach that next milestone, that it sets you up to raise again. When I was a VC, this was a key question. If we didn't believe you could raise the next round, we wouldn't invest. Why is that? Because then you'd likely run out of money within 18 to 24 months. It just wasn't worth the risk. And in 2025, investors are even more cautious. They care more than ever about whether you can raise again. So part of what you need to do is show not just progress, but how that progress gets you to the next stage. But how do you do that? You need to understand stage dynamics and mechanics and how they relate to how investors think about what you're doing. So what are they? So pre-seed is where you need to validate the problem, build an MVP, show that someone cares. And look, the bet is mostly on you, your insight and early proof that you can build and learn and actually create a business that actually makes sense. At seed, this is where you've actually got something live, some level of early traction in terms of users, and some signs of repeatability. The goal here is really to turn early momentum into something that can be scalable, and that there's some information that's actually repeatable in what you're doing. Series A, what you're trying to show is that you can actually scale, right? So this is repeatable metrics, growing revenue, some edge in your market and understanding where that is, and really create an aspect of where it's literally just about putting $1 in and you'll get $3 out. Now, where founders go wrong here and how you need to change your mindset of doing this is each round is really about one question. Will this capital that you get you to the next stage? So if you're a pre-seed and you're looking for pre-seed, you need to show investors how you're going to get to seed and show them exactly the steps and make them feel like it's actually going to happen. And the same goes for if you're raising a seed round. It needs to be, we already have some level of repeatability. This is how we're going to scale. We're going to get there, and showing the data points of how you're doing it. And the same thing for obviously Series A. At that point, you're pushing towards Series B and saying that we have this scalability. It's just about putting as many people in and we go forward. You've got to know where you are today and what it will take to get to that next stage. And then you need to show investors how you'll use this raise to get there. You need to focus on efficient growth, monetization, and unit economics. And in 2025, VCs are going to be digging deep into your model, even at the earliest stages. They want to see some level of path to profitability, or at least clear economic logic of how you can get to each of these stages. So, point 3. The bar is just generally higher for non-hype categories. I was looking at some data on this, and only $4 billion actually went into traditional SaaS in 2024, compared to the 100 billion plus in AI-driven startups. So if you're not building an AI, or whatever the hot sector is right now, that's fine. You still can raise, but you've got to realize that the bar is higher. You need tighter proof, sharper storytelling, and a better process, or implement some level of AI-driven aspect towards your business. You can't just rely on hype to carry you. And this is where I see a lot of founders are stuck. You're solving real problems, but if the category doesn't feel exciting to investors, you've got to compensate by bringing the clarity and showing that you can still scale in the same way that others can't, or actually building in some level of AI capabilities. You need to double down on proof, on market pull, and the why now, and that the category won't signal it for you, but your insight and traction have to. And that brings us into point number 4, and that's just that fundraising takes a lot longer than that now. I helped a founder raise $1.4 million last year. And look, it took 5 months from first meeting to close. And from the outside, it looked smooth. Everyone was congratulating him, saying how great it was. But internally, it felt like it would collapse multiple times. And that's what I've seen over the last year. Pretty much every single funding round that I've done has not been smooth. And it very rarely is smooth. They honestly take a lot longer. A seed round now often takes 4 to 6 months from that first meeting. Gone are the days of closing in 2 weeks. And for the most part, it's not going to feel like this really easy fundraise. There's going to be points where you think you're failing. Even if you go and raise 1, 2, 5, $10 million, there's going to be points where you're not sure if it's going to happen. And that's just part and parcel of it. You need to realize that fundraising is super hard right now, and that there's going to be hard points in it where you don't think it's going to be successful, but you've just got to keep persevering and keep pushing through, because it will happen, especially if you set up the earlier stages of the preparation and the launch in the right way. So you can't leave it too late. You need to build in real time for this. I'm not saying that you step away from the business for 6 months, of course, but if you only give yourself 2 to 3 months of runway to raise and you haven't done the preparation in the right way, you're setting yourself up to fail, and you're setting up yourself to lose money before an investor's actually going to put money into your bank account. So you need to sit down and map this out. Pick your ideal money in the bank date, and then count backwards 3 months for investor meetings, and then add another 1 to 1.5 months for prep. That's the timeline that you have. And you really need to think in those kind of level of timeline. You can't be short-sighted on this, because all that's going to happen is you're going to run out of money and you're not going to have enough time. You're going to have to shut down your business. The best founders are raising from investors they've known for months, not strangers. And they started prepping early so that they're not worried about money when they're going into. And that brings us on to point 5. Cold outreach is working even less than before. Look, not that it ever really worked, but AI has made it worse. Investors are drowning in AI generated emails that are spammy and generic and trying to do some level of personalization, but it just doesn't really work. So the tolerance for cold emails is lower than ever. So if you're still banking on blasting emails to every investor that you have, you just need to stop. You need to build a structured investor network, build a real map of who you want to speak to, use the connectors in the right way, and warm things up 60 to 90 days before the race. Cold outreach just won't cut it. Investors just don't like it. They're deleting them as soon as possible. They just don't want cold emails at all. And precision and context and trust building from warm introductions is what they're really looking for, because they're so annoyed by these AI generated cold emails that are just spamming their inboxes way more than before AI was a thing. So to wrap this up, investing in the VC market is still open for business in 2025. Like I said, we've raised millions of dollars doing that in the last few months, but you've got to tick the right boxes. And because it's harder than ever, you need to make sure that you have a system in place for how you build your fundraise operationally and how you conduct your fundraise, because it's harder and harder to get investment these days, and you're against even more founders that are coming through. So you have to understand how to approach investors properly. This market weeds out weak players, but the founders who are left and the investors who are left want to invest. They have capital, they're just more selective. So if you meet them with the same level of preparation, you'll not only raise, but you'll raise on better terms from better investors and with more control as well. That's what I've seen. So you've got to start early, get organized, and build a fundraising system that actually works for you and gives you the highest chance of success for fundraising. And if you want help with that, check out the link below on how you can do that in 90 days. Otherwise, I've created a video here on how to build a network in the right way and how that relates to getting as many warm connections as possible. Now, if you want to look at that, all you have to do is click here.